Hey, what's up guys? It's Luke, Black Sheep 217 on Pokemon the Trading Card Game Online. That's my username. And at Zoom Battle Gym on Facebook, I just started a page there where I'm going to start hosting tournaments. I've actually had a few tournaments, so check out the page. It's a lot of fun. We're going to meet generally Saturday evenings. And so if you're interested in playing Pokemon with some friendly people like myself, who just enjoy the game of Pokemon, please come and check it out. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for you, and it'll be great for you to hang out with us. We're a brand new group at this point, so we'd love to have you. Actually, speaking of which, the last prize for the tournament was this Galarian Sirfetch'd theme deck, and the winner of the tournament actually won this. I'm actually going to be giving him the codes to this so that he has a Galarian Sirfetch'd deck online to use. And that's actually the deck we're going to be talking about today. So, Galarian Sirfetch'd, I don't know a whole lot about the backstory of Galarian Sirfetch'd. All I know is this Pokemon is really, really strong. And he makes a great Pokemon to put a deck around. I guess if you're just at the store, you don't know a whole lot about Pokemon, when you see this one, you're going to be like, it's just a bird. And I don't know why I would want a bird holding a big old leek. That doesn't seem like anything too special. But you'd be completely mistaken. Galarian Sirfetch'd is an amazing Pokemon. And Galarian Sirfetch'd has an attack that can knock out even the biggest of all bad Pokemon. We talked about Charizard in a previous strategy and review video. Sirfetch'd can one-hit knock out a Charizard with his attack. That's pretty crazy if you ask me. So if you want to know about this kind of power, check out this deck. I really enjoy playing this deck, and it's a deck that can surprise quite a few people. So even though this deck is sort of a green in color, you might think, oh, this must be a grass deck. It's not. It's actually a fighting deck. So every Pokemon in this deck is fighting type. There are no other types of Pokemon in this deck, and they all take fighting energy. And that's all you're going to find in this deck. It's fight, fight, fight all the way. So it's going to be a really interesting deck for you to play. If you like fighting Pokemon, this is certainly the deck for you. Now, whenever I go through strategies and reviews like this, I always sort of break this review up into different sections, and I'm going to have chapter markers in the description below. So if you're wondering, hey, when is this next chapter going to come up, or I want to skip to a certain section of the video, check down in the chapters, and then you can go right to the part that you want to go to. The first section of the video is about the Pokemon in the deck, and I split up all of my Pokemon that come in this theme deck into 4 main categories. There are the good Pokemon. Now these are the Pokemon that you're going to want in any deck. These are amazing Pokemon. They are never bad to have. You're always going to want to use these Pokemon. You also have the decent Pokemon who, they're okay. They're not that great, but in a pinch, you know, you'll be happy that you have these Pokemon with you. Then you have the very situational Pokemon, and a situational Pokemon is one where generally you wouldn't really want this Pokemon around, or it's pretty useless at certain times, but in certain situations, this Pokemon is going to be your best friend and is going to be a very strong part of your deck. And finally, sadly, these are the lame Pokemon. These are the Pokemon when you get in your hand, you're like, why? And you get disheartened, especially if they're like your starting Pokemon and you have to put them out there and maybe they take too much energy to attack or they don't have hardly any HP. These are the Pokemon that you wish that the good people at the Pokemon Company took out of this deck and replaced with someone else. Okay, so that's the 4 categories of Pokemon. And of course, we're going to start with the good Pokemon. Okay, our first Pokemon is Sudowoodo, and you see Sudowoodo in a lot of decks. Sudowoodo is a basic Pokemon with 100 HP, and the biggest thing about him is the double draw. And sometimes I put Sudowoodo in like a, he's not in the, in the good Pokemon category. Sometimes he's in the decent or the situational. But in this deck, he is definitely in good standing because this deck ends up being kind of slow. And because it's slow, you need drawing ability, and Sudowoodo can provide that really well for this deck, so you kind of need him. And, you know, his flail ability is great. It discourages the weaker Pokemon from attacking Sudowoodo because, you know, he attacks for as much damage he has on him for only 1 energy. So he really does discourage people from taking him out. Not very many Pokemon, especially early on, can take Sudowoodo out. So he's going to be a great Pokemon to help you draw and get this deck moving because it can be a bit slow. Okay, this next Pokemon is Dugtrio. Dugtrio is a nice Pokemon. He has a couple of really nice attacks. Actually, both of them are really good and they're both very cheap. The first attack is Dig. And what happens is, first of all, it takes 30 damage. That's really nice. Deals 30 damage for 1 energy. Pretty good. But the secondary portion of it is, if you flip a coin and it ends up being heads, no effects or damage can come to Dugtrio on that turn. The next turn. That's very, very powerful. It's very Rapidash-esque. There's Rapidash in the other decks, although Rapidash is better. So this is like the poor man's version of Rapidash. Rapidash deals 60 damage, whereas Dig only deals 30. So not nearly as good. It would take Dugtrio a lot more time to actually take out other Pokemon. However, Dugtrio does have the Mud Bomb attack, which takes away 70 from your opposing Pokemon and only costs 2. So he does have a very strong secondary attack. Dugtrio is somebody you want to have out on the field as quickly as you can if you have Diglett out, because Dugtrio is just like way better than Diglett in every single possible way. Okay, it's time to talk about the main star of the deck, Galarian Sirfetch'd. Galarian Sirfetch'd is an amazing Pokemon. Let's check out what Galarian Sirfetch'd has. First of all, it's a stage 1, not a stage 2, so it's nice. You know, you don't have to wait forever to get Sirfetch'd out. You also get 3 in the deck, which is cool. And they have 130 HP, which is a pretty decent and beefy amount of HP for stage 1 in particular. For 1 energy, Sirfetch'd here can pierce for 40 damage. That's a very strong attack, especially early game. But the money attack is going to be the Meteor Assault. Meteor Assault, 180 damage. Do you see that? 180 damage? That's more than Charizard has. Charizard has 170 when we're talking about the ones in the theme deck. 180. Charizard is gone. There are only like 1 or 2, I think, Pokemon that have over 180 HP in the theme deck format. Galarian Sirfetch'd can just one-shot so many people. Now, the only issue with this attack is that you cannot use it again unless Galarian Sirfetch'd leaves the active area. So if he leaves the active area and comes back somehow, it returns and you can use it again. So you're going to want to find ways to get Galarian Sirfetch'd out of the active area and back in again. So if you play this deck, you're going to get really good at like swapping and switching out Pokemon. It's going to drive your opponent nuts. Okay, we're going to start talking about the decent Pokemon with Hippowdon. I don't know how to pronounce the name. Anyways, this beast, 150 HP, stage 1 Pokemon, has a triple smash that costs 3 energy that can take out up to 240 damage. Now that's way more than Sirfetch'd can do, but the problem with this attack is that it's a coin flip. So it has a potential of doing no damage, which would be terrible. Then it could do 80 or 160 or 240. So, you know, these uncertain attacks, I'm never a huge fan of them, but like if you're in like a desperate situation and you really need someone that can really hit for a lot, this is the Pokemon that you might want to go with. A more stable attack is the Land Crush attack, which deals 150 just straight off the bat. That's a strong amount of damage. The only issue is it is 4 energy costs, so you're committing quite a bit of energy to one Pokemon. And you know, if that Pokemon goes down, there go your energy. So those are the risks, but Hippowdon, he's not a bad Pokemon to have out there. He can be kind of intimidating if opponents have to face him and if they see that you're powering him up. So we talked about Dugtrio, but Diglett is the basic form of Dugtrio, and you know, Diglett is really not a great Pokemon, but I think he's good enough to be at least decent. He has a scratch attack that can deal 20 damage, and there are enough Pokemon in the game that are weak to fighting where that could be a 40 damage attack, especially for a lot of colorless Pokemon. It can be quite beastly, and to have him out, he can deal some good damage. Also, he only has 50 HP, so he's not that strong. So that's why I say if you can get Dugtrio out, just get Dugtrio out as soon as you can. Diglett's a good little option to start with, to start poking at some damage, but again, you're going to want to upgrade Diglett as quickly as you can. Galarian Farfetch'd is our next Pokemon, and I was trying to figure out, is he, you know, a good Pokemon or a decent Pokemon? And he ends up being decent because of a couple reasons. Number one, I never really want to have Farfetch'd out there because I'm trying to protect Sirfetch'd, so I don't want Farfetch'd getting, you know, knocked out or accruing a lot of damage, unless like he has to be out there. So Farfetch'd is decent with 80 HP. That's pretty good for basic. The Rock Smash is actually deceivingly strong because it can deal 10 damage, which is really weak, but flip ahead and it becomes a 40 damage attack. Wow, that can be very, very nice, especially in the early game. And then of course he's got Pierce for 30, which is a moderate attack, not bad, better than average though, for sure. And so that's why I think he's in this decent Pokemon category, because he's not particularly strong in any way, but I don't think you'd mind having him as a starting Pokemon as long as you're careful not to get him knocked out, because you want Sirfetch'd in there as quickly as possible, and that's really what Farfetch'd is in there for, is to evolve. Okay, so we're moving on to situational Pokemon. So situation Pokemon are the ones that you're kind of like, I'm not sure if I really want them there unless the situation warrants it. And that first one is going to be Passimian. Passimian is a basic Pokemon, and the only time I really, really like to have him out is at the beginning, because oftentimes I'm looking for Pokemon at the beginning to fill out the bench, and Passimian can stay in the active spot with 110 HP, that's not bad, and you can call for family. So call for family is going to allow you to grab 2 Pokemon and put them on your bench. That's pretty good. The only thing I don't like about him is the Rock Hurl. Now the Rock Hurl takes 70 off your opposing Pokemon, which is, I think, is really good. And this damage is not affected by the resistance of the opposing Pokemon, which is also really good. But, you know, you might notice, or you will notice, that this deck is very energy intensive. So getting energy and putting it on to Pokemon is a commitment. Because if you put it on a Pokemon, that means you're going to stick with that Pokemon. You're going to say, this is going to be my battler. And so Passimian, his Rock Hurl takes off 70 damage, but it costs 3 energy to do so. And that, combined with the 110 HP, which is just moderate, makes me a little bit wary to use Passimian that often. I'd much rather use some of the stronger Pokemon in this deck and just kind of lay off Passimian, unless, you know, Passimian's out at the very beginning of the game. Our next Pokemon that is sort of a situation Pokemon is Stonjourner. Stonjourner is cool. It looks like a huge Pokemon. It weighs over 1,100 pounds. This is a big guy. He's a big rock Pokemon. However, you know, again, this is a situational Pokemon. Because, first of all, if you want Stonjourner in there, he's not going to retreat unless you got a switch or something else that can get him out of there. Because it takes 4 energy to retreat him. You're not going to retreat him, right? I mean, I can 1% of the time, 0.5% of the time, you'll retreat him whenever you play him. I mean, of course, you can switch him out and all this thing, but you have to really commit to him if you're going to use him. That means you're going to have to put 3 energy on him for the Mega Kick for 80, which is a very respectable attack, or 4 for the Power Press, which gives you 120. But here's the thing, you put another energy on him, the Power Press becomes 180 damage. That's beefy attack. But think about it, it's 5 energy on Stonjourner. So unless you know Stonjourner's not going to go down, you're not going to want to put that on there because, you know, people are building up to big Pokemon like Charizard who can hit for 150 for like 2 energy, right? There are a lot of Charizards out there that can do that or more for a couple more energy, or with Leons or anything like that. Stonjourner would be 1 hit and gone, and you're going to see him fly away and all of the energy attached, and that is disheartening. So unless it's a good situation for Stonjourner, I would often use him as a meat shield just to absorb damage rather than be a main attacker. But he can be a main attacker, and that's why he's not lame. He can do a job. It's just he's very situational. There's one Pokemon in this deck that I don't like at all. I don't like this Pokemon in my hand. It's Hippopotas. Hippopotas, I like the picture. Looks like he's got like camo on, like desert camo. 100 HP basic Pokemon, but look at his tackle attack, 10. Why did they give him a tackle for just 10? It's horrible. That's terrible. I mean, I'm just like frustrated because it'd be nice to have Hippopotas out there, but look at the difference between the tackle and the double stomp. 1 energy versus 4 energy. It's just a nutty amount of difference. And the double stomp only maxes out at 130 and that's if you can flip 2 heads with it. So his attacks are not worth it. Either too weak or not strong enough for the second one, and it takes 4 energy to retreat. It's just a waste of space. I mean, I'm glad the evolution is decent, but that means if you get Hippopotas out there, you just need to evolve him. Or just, again, he's a meat shield, and if you're just a meat shield, that's pretty lame. So sadly, this deck does have a lame Pokemon, and it's Hippopotas here. You never really want to have him out. I have to put him out there sometimes. I mean, obviously he has to go out, but unfortunately not a very useful Pokemon at all. Alright, so we're going to move on to the trainers now, and the trainers are split up into 3 categories as well. I have my top tier trainers, my mid tier trainers, and the bottom tier. Now, really cool about this deck, there are no bottom tier trainers. They're all at least top or middle. I found that this is the case with a lot of decks. I mean, I feel like these decks are constructed with, you know, these trainers that have definite uses specifically tailored for this type of play. So let's go over the top tier of the trainers first. Let me go through this list here. We have the top being Great Ball, then Pokemon Catcher, Switch, Beedee, Beekeeper, Hop, and Sonia. Those are the top trainers in this deck. The mid trainers are the Turbo Patch and Professor's Research. I don't know what it is. Maybe I just have something against Professor's Research, but I always find that I'm a little bit harsher on Professor's Research than maybe I feel like I should be, because it's included in all the decks, and I think it's a good card, and I think a lot of people respect the card, and when it's used against me, I hate it, but I always just find that Professor's Research has its flaws. Okay, we're going to talk about the trainer cards next, and just like I have with Pokemon, I have tiers for the trainers. We have the top tier trainers, the middle tier trainers, and of course, the bottom tier trainers. Now, in this deck, there are no bottom tier trainers. They're all relatively useful. And let's go through a couple of them. Actually, let's go through the mid tier first, because those are my weakest trainers in this deck. The first one is a card I actually like a whole lot. I'm sad that this is in the bottom, or not the bottom, but the mid tier, which is the lowest tier in this deck. It's Turbo Patch. And it says, flip a coin. If heads, attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your basic Pokemon that isn't a Pokemon GX. So this gets you energy from the discard pile. That's really good. Now, it only goes to basic Pokemon and not a Pokemon GX. Now, there's no GX Pokemon in this deck, so that's not a big deal. But it takes a coin flip. And I've had it numerous times where I've had 2 of these cards in the deck, in my hand. Not even in the deck. There's 2 cards, there's 2 of these in the deck, but in my hand, and both of them flip tails. I feel like tails happens so often in this game. Is it 50-50? Sometimes it feels like it's more. But, you know, sometimes when you need this Turbo Patch to really hit, it doesn't come through. Now, this deck already has slowness associated with it. I wish there was a card that did not take a coin flip, like Beatty or something like that. Turbo Patch, I love that you can get from discard pile, so that is pretty powerful of an ability. But there are limitations to Turbo Patch, like it can only be basic, can only go to a basic Pokemon, can't go to GX, and it takes a coin flip. I just think there's a few too many limitations in this card to make it a top tier trainer card. Now, it's a great card, it can totally swing the tide of battle and win you the game, but you gotta get that coin flip. Okay, Professor's Research, again, a mid-level card. You know, often when you play this deck, you end up with cards that you really need. You're just waiting and waiting on cards that you need to, like, either evolve, or you need some extra energy for these cards to come out. They're very situational. Well, Professor's Research is great, but it's only really good when you have cards that are very few cards in your hand, and maybe cards that you don't really need. Because other than that, Professor's Research is going to discard some cards that you are trying to hold on to save, but, you know, Professor's Research doesn't go to your draw pile, it goes into the discard. So, you know, a card like Cynthia, or Copycat, I should say, or something like those cards, you know, you can put cards back into your deck. This card throws everything away to draw 7. Now, 7's a good amount of cards, don't get me wrong, it's great. But, I don't know, it just, I find that I'm oftentimes having this card, I don't use it because there are too many other cards in my hand that I don't want to get rid of. So, like, if you're holding a Galarian Sirfetch'd, for example, and you're waiting for Farfetch'd to come out, and you have Professor's Research, you might not want to use Professor's Research because then you're going to get rid of one of the best cards in your deck just to try to refresh your hand, but sometimes that's all you can do as a last-ditch effort. It just feels like a very last-ditch effort type of card, and I'd rather have something a little bit more useful, maybe just a card that draws 3. That would probably be better for me than something like Professor's Research. Okay, let's just take a quick scan through the other trainers and why they're so good and why they're the top. The Great Ball, of course, this is going to speed up your deck. It's just going to pull Pokemon out of those top 7 cards of your deck, so if you see one that you like, you can grab that one. Excellent card. Pokemon Catcher, this is a top card. It is so good to get a Pokemon off of their bench and into their active spot for you to just annihilate. Now, this does take a flip of a coin, but this is such a game-changing, game-breaking card that I have to put it in the top. This is great. Now, I have, of course, hit Tails and not have this work, and it's very saddening and disheartening when that happens. But you do get 2 of these, thankfully, in your deck, and when it works, it is just a card that can annihilate opponents. Switch, of course, you're going to always want to be switching. This is a key card because Galarian Sirfetch'd is a Pokemon that you need to get out of the active spot, so retreating and switching and doing all these things to move Pokemon around in this deck, these cards are always going to be really good. We talked about Turbo Patch already. Beatty, kind of a better version of Turbo Patch, except, you know, Beatty's a supporter, so you can only use this once, and the basic energy comes from your hand, not from the discard pile. So there are advantages to this card and some disadvantages in comparison to Turbo Patch, but this is a better card than Turbo Patch is. Birdkeeper is great. Again, the ability to switch is just key, and if you do that, you also get to draw 3 cards. So you have that extra ability. That's really nice. Hop, draw 3 cards. Always good. Never a bad card. We talked about Professor's Research, and Sonia is going to be very important because I think, you know, getting the 2 basic Pokemon from Sonia is good and can be useful. I think getting the basic energy cards might be even more important because sometimes this deck can lack the energy cards that you need, and Sonia here will help you get exactly what you need. So Sonia is a very nice trainer to have. And like I said, there's not really any bad trainer cards in this deck. My least favorite, of course, would be Professor's Research, but again, that's I think it might be my bias against it. You might really love Professor's Research. Okay, it's time for wishes, and these are the things that I wish that this deck had. Number 1, I wish this deck had some more Pokemon in it that could have decent damage in the 50 to 80 range. I mean, we have too many Pokemon that have either a really terrible attack or an attack that doesn't take off anything, it just does something like bring in Pokemon. And then we also have an attack that is strong, or decently strong, but costs way too much. A lot of the Pokemon in this deck are like that. There's no mid-range Pokemon that is a good battler that can just deal a good amount of damage for very nice energy costs. I'm thinking like a Rapidash who can deal 60 damage at a time for only a couple energies. That is an amazing Pokemon. You also have Yanmega in the Charizard deck. 2 energy for 50 damage and has the ability to run away. It's so good. What does this deck have? Nothing. So you're really stuck with either paltry damage or decently strong damage that costs a lot of energy. Neither option is really that good. The only really balanced guy is unbalanced in his amazing meteor attack, but that's Sirfetch'd. But I just think this deck needs something better. Okay, some better mid-range basic Pokemon or Stage 1 Pokemon. I mean, get rid of Hippopotas. I mean, just get rid of him and put another Pokemon in that is better, because this is not. This is just not working out. I've mentioned this already, but the other point is this deck needs better draw ability. It just grinds to a halt sometimes, and then you're just sitting there with your hand there, and you're just like, what am I doing? And your turn takes like 2 seconds while the other guy takes like a whole minute, and you see all these cards being manipulated around, drawn, flip-flapped, all this kind of thing. So this deck needs a better way to draw cards. I wish there were Pokemon in here that could draw cards, or better trainers, or trainers that could draw even more or more cards of the trainers that draw cards, because this deck certainly needs it. It's kind of a slow deck. And lastly, this has to do with the trainers again. The really good cards that could be game-breaking, of course they are coin-flipped cards, like Pokemon Catcher. Maybe put a couple more Pokemon Catchers in, max it out, because that's what this deck is about. Or maybe just put 1 in to have 3. I think Pokemon Catcher is such a great card, it's just unreliable. You know, at 50%, with a 50% chance, it's such a huge roll of the dice for such a key card. It brings so much uncertainty to this deck. So I just wish that there was a little bit less uncertainty for something that this deck is desperately trying to do. Okay, and now we're going to talk about some strategies in this deck. Now, of course, the most obvious strategy is to get Sirfetch'd out as quickly as possible. There are plenty of ways to try to get Sirfetch'd out. If you have any draw mechanics, get them out. If you have any, Pokeballs, use those. Get Sirfetch'd out as quickly as possible, because the quicker you get Sirfetch'd out, the faster you can win the game. If your game is going to drag on and on and on, this is not one of those decks that you want the game to go too long, because I just honestly think pound for pound, these Pokemon are strong, but other decks just have Pokemon that are a little bit more versatile, that are less one-dimensional, which is what a lot of these Pokemon are, just strong, beefy, and cost a lot. They just have such a great Pokemon in Galarian Sirfetch'd that just kind of overcomes all those other flaws. It's just, you're stuck with a lot of those flaws. You're going to want to use a strategy in which you can manipulate Sirfetch'd in and out of your active zone. So you might actually have to use Switch and Retreat in combination to get Sirfetch'd out and back in. Oftentimes I'm trying to give easy retreating Pokemon an energy so that they can take over the spot and then leave. Unfortunately, there's no free retreating Pokemon in this deck. You don't have U-turn or anything like that to really help you out. So you're just going to have to rely on paying those retreat costs. Just don't get stuck with like Stonjourner or somebody out in front, or like Hippowdon or whatever, because they're not going to get out until they die. And you're just going to wait and wait and wait. And your opponent could be like, well, I'm just going to let them sit there since you're not going to power them up. You don't want to waste energy on, Pokemon that cost way too much to power up. The other guy is just going to sit in the back line, building, till they're ready to just wipe you out. To start the game, you're going to want to use Sudowoodo, Diglett, or Passimian. These are your best bets for starting Pokemon. Passimian is going to call for family. They're going to get other Pokemon out. Be strategic. Get Farfetch'd out if you don't have any Farfetch'd. Maybe get Diglett out if you have Dugtrio. These are the Pokemon that you want to get out as soon as you can with Passimian. Passimian is not going to be very good later in the game, so retreat him and just kind of let him be. And if you need to throw someone out to block, that's the Pokemon to do it, unfortunately. Sudowoodo is also going to be great for drawing cards, so if that's who you have to start, then have Sudowoodo start drawing you cards as much as possible, and then Flail if the opportunity comes up, because you want to be very strategic with his Flail. And lastly, Diglett. If you have Diglett, you're going to hope and pray that you can just punch for 20 a bunch of times and really get the other opponents softer so that you can hit harder maybe when you turn into Dugtrio, where you can use the Mud Bomb and hopefully knock out your opponent. And of course, you're going to want to use Pokemon Catcher to catch your opponent off guard. I think it's one of the just nastiest cards when it works. So try to get that into your hand, have Sirfetch'd powered up, and then knock them out. Or you can, if the game is going slowly, you can start to power up just one of your big beefy guys, like Hippo or Stonjourner. Just power one of them up, but don't try to equally put energy on these guys, because you're going to run out of energy. They do put a lot of energy into this deck, but and there's a lot of energy to be had, but the one energy per turn rule just stalls it out. Most of the other decks that you face will have Pokemon that can deal good damage for less energy than it costs them to do. So what I need you to do, if you're using this deck, just pick one of the big beefy Pokemon if that's what you're going to do to power up, and just hope and pray that they don't get knocked out. Watch out for Pokemon that are on the other side that could deal damage to your bench, because while you're trying to build, if they're getting taken out indirectly, that's going to be some of the worst news ever. Of course, the strength of this deck, and we're going to talk about strength now, is to deal 180 damage in one shot with Galarian Sirfetch'd. That is so great. That is a huge strength, and there may be people who don't see this deck coming. If you have Farfetch'd on your bench with one energy, your opponent might be like, yes, I'm in total command. They're beating up Pokemon that you have, that you're throwing out there to stall for time. But once you throw Farfetch'd out there, toss an energy on him, and then evolve him to Sirfetch'd, you're going to see that opponent, they're just going to start freaking out, because they know maybe their time is over. Sirfetch'd can really turn the tide of a game, so that is the huge strength of this deck. some people just quit when they see Sirfetch'd knocking out their Pokemon because they know they have nothing they can do to stop it. So yes, a lot of the Pokemon in this deck are very strong. They have a lot of HP, they can be basic Pokemon and still be strong. So what they make is probably a good wall. So that's definitely a strength. I mean, there's definitely cons to it, but a strength is they are generally strong, and the Pokemon in this deck are generally tough and have a good amount of HP, so they're going to be able to withstand attack, especially from the lesser Pokemon in your opponent's deck. So take advantage of that. Don't be afraid to let them soak up the damage while you save up energy for your giant Meteor Assault. I briefly said this before, but did you realize there are 3 Galarian Sirfetch'd in this deck? That's really nice. Most decks only put in 2 of your big card. This deck has 3 Sirfetch'd. So that's definitely a strength. You have an extra one in there. That means he can come out quicker, faster, and that's what you're going to need to do, is get Sirfetch'd out onto the board as quickly as you can. And so thankfully, this deck does give you 3, and that's a huge strength of giving you an extra copy of the best Pokemon in the deck. So if you've been paying attention, you already know the weaknesses of this deck. This deck is slow. So, you know, you can't really do a whole lot about that with the cards you have. Just be thankful if you have cards that keep the deck moving, that keep drawing cards for you, because once that stalls out, this deck can really feel like it stalls. A lot of the moves you make with this deck don't require a whole lot of actions, so you're going to see that your opponent's doing action after action after action, and you're just sitting there waiting. That's kind of how this deck can be sometimes, and that's definitely a weakness. It's just not a super complicated deck. Also, we talked about Pokemon Catcher and its 50% hit rate, just how bad that is. Because this would be your best card in the entire deck, the game-winning card for you, a perfect match with Galarian Sirfetch'd, but again, its 50% hit rate is just too high. There needs to be something like Escape Rope in this deck rather than Pokemon Catcher. I know Escape Rope is not good because like you have to kind of plan a little bit more with it, since it drags 2 Pokemon out of the active zone, and Pokemon Catcher just does your opponent, which is amazing. It's just a 50% hit rate on it. Feels like it's more than 50% fail. But, you know, it's because you want it to work so much, and you just notice every time it doesn't. And you just have a huge frowny face when that happens, so I hate that. And lastly, the weakness is the Pokemon's initial attacking ability. A lot of your beefy Pokemon, they should hit hard and hit hard all the time, but so many of them have such a weak initial attack. I'm looking at you, Hippopotamus. This Pokemon can tackle for 10, and that's it, and your other attack does 70 plus damage, but you need 4 energy? Come on. That's definitely a weakness, and I think it's frustrating when you actually play. Okay, it's time for the overall grade. You know, I've been playing this deck a lot, and I think it's a very strong deck. It's a very fun deck to play. It's one you don't see too often. I mean, I see it pop up every so often, but it's not one of the, like, overplayed decks, that's for sure. You can definitely win with this Galarian Sirfetch'd deck. It's very powerful, and I think can be very surprising for some. To give this a grade, I would give this deck a B+. A B+. It's a very good deck. It's definitely a deck you can win with often, but it does fall short against some of the more popular decks out there. Its slowness doesn't do it any favors, and you're going to be facing an uphill battle if you're facing guys like Charizard still. Even though you can one-shot Charizard, it takes a lot of maneuvering around in order to take Charizard out, especially if your opponent knows Sirfetch'd is coming. And those decks are generally a lot faster than this deck, so they get started a lot quicker. In particular, if you're facing Rapidash, you're just going to go bonkers, because Rapidash has 100 HP, and your Pokemon cannot take him out until they're fully charged up, and if his agility is popping, you're gonna have a sad, sad time. I'm sorry, it's happened to me a lot, so I feel the pain. But here we go, B+ for Galarian Sirfetch'd theme deck. Really nice one. I highly suggest giving it a try. It's good stuff. Thanks for watching. Again, please look me up on Pokemon Trading Card Game online. My handle there is BlackSheep217. And also go to my Facebook page at Zoom Battle Gym and like the page. Join in some tournaments, hang out. I give out prizes and stuff like that. Like I said, I gave out a Galarian Sirfetch'd deck just last week to our tournament winner. They're going to get the code and everything. It's going to be sweet. Thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. I will see you next time.